The galaxy's greatest port was alive with light. Ships of 1,000 worlds streamed in and out, gleaming in colors meant to dazzle the ice-leak Vakari cruisers lined with neon veins, crystalline Avaran frigates glittering like shards of frozen suns, and lumbering Raxian carriers, bristling with weapons and escorted by swarms of drones. Each empire displayed its strength openly, like predators bearing fangs in a crowded den. And then, the void shuddered. The air around the station dimmed, as if the stars themselves drew back. A single ship emerged from hyperspace, tearing through the veil of black like thunder through a summer sky. It was not beautiful, not elegant. It came wrapped in scars, a dreadnought of human designed, dark gray, thunder-colored, its surface mottled with burn marks and gouges left unpolished, as if it had been dragged through 1,000 storms and survived every one. Its engines rumbled with a low, resonant growl that vibrated through the hulls of nearby vessels. The other fleets fell silent, in the grand docking rings where ships lined up like jewels. This lone vessel looked like a shadow against a bonfire. It carried no escort. No armada followed in its wake. No ceremonial lights adorned its sides. Just steel, scarred and unyielding, drifting forward with the inevitability of a storm cloud. Rolling across a horizon, the whispers began almost immediately. "Is that it?" a Strahl commander hissed through her frilled mandibles. "Where are the rest of them?" Another alien sneered. "Surely no species would come here with one ship. They've grown weak. Or perhaps they've already fallen." In the observation gallery, dozens of species pressed against the glass, watching the human dreadnought glide into its berth. Its hull groaned as docking arms latched onto it, the sound reverberating like distant THUNDERCLAPS. Every empire represented had brought fleets, entire legions, to demonstrate strength at the Council's wargames. The Vakari had sent 60 warships, the Raxians 90. Even the smallest civilizations brought squadrons in glittering formation. Yet humanity, silent, isolated, long absent from galactic politics, arrived with only one ship, one relic that looked more like a survivor than a champion. Inside the council chamber, the alien dignitaries turned their gazes toward the humans, with varying shades of amusement and disdain. The Vakari Admiral Threx Vero, a mountain of scaled muscle with eyes like burning coals, leaned forward and sneered. "Pathetic," he muttered loud enough for the translation nodes to catch. His voice boomed across the chamber. "Is this all Earth can muster? A single warship? Perhaps their species has already withered away." The chamber rippled with laughter, hollow, cruel, mocking. But not everyone laughed. From the far corner, a frail elder of the Avaran leaned on his crystalline staff, his eyes narrowing as the echoes of the human ship's arrival still lingered in the metal bones of the station. He had lived long enough to remember the last great human war. He had seen records of cities burning, skies shattered, oceans boiling. His voice came as a whisper, almost lost beneath the laughter. "No," he said, "they have not withered. They have endured. That ship is not a relic." His crystal eyes flicked toward the thunder-gray dreadnought. "It is a warning." The laughter faltered for a moment, just long enough for unease to slither into the air. The humans disembarked, then rows of officers and soldiers moving with perfect step, their boots striking the deck in unison. Each impact echoed down the corridors like thunder rolling over plains. Their faces were solemn, their expressions carved from stone, eyes carrying storms within them. They said nothing, offered no salutes, no smiles. They walked as if they carried shadows at their backs, and the whispers grew louder. "Why only one ship?" The question spread through the station like fire through dry grass, consuming every corridor, every gathering hall, every alien mind. The answer had not yet been spoken, but already the air felt heavy, as though the void itself remembered storms yet to come. The docking bay fell into silence as the humans emerged, They came in a line, men and women, in dark uniforms, worn at the edges, patched but clean. Their boots struck the deck in unison, every step ringing sharp against steel. The sound carried unnaturally far, reverberating through the cavernous port like distant thunder rolling down a valley. Aliens who had crowded forward to mock or jeer now stepped back. There was nothing flashy about them, no gleaming armor, no ceremonial banners. Yet the way they moved, disciplined, silent, relentless, set nerves on edge. Each face was weathered, hardened by storms, seen and survived. Their eyes, cold and distant, seemed to look straight through the crowds that surrounded them. A Vakari officer muttered uneasily, "Why do they march like that? No one does that anymore." Beside him, a Xylari delegate whispered, "Because they are not marching, they are remembering." Whispers swept through the galleries. Some said humanity had been conquered long ago, broken and scattered, and this single ship was all that remained. Others claimed Earth itself had fallen into ruin, and these were the last survivors. Still others suggested the humans had gone mad, building one monstrous relic while abandoning fleets altogether. But none of the humans spoke. They passed the alien crowds without a word, their shadows stretching long beneath the floodlights, cast like black scars across the docking bay floor. Even when the Vakari Admiral Threx barked a laugh, "Where is your fleet, humans?" Misplaced it. They didn't respond. Their silence was worse than any retort. It was not the silence of shame. It was the silence of endurance. The silence of storms waiting behind closed skies. One young alien cadet, barely of age, found himself staring too long. He expected them to avert their eyes when noticed. But the nearest human, a woman with silver threaded through her dark hair, met his gaze directly. Her expression never changed. Her stare was calm too, calm like the center of a hurricane. The cadet shivered and looked away first. He realized, with a jolt of fear, that he could not imagine her running, could not imagine her begging. He could only imagine her walking forward, no matter what lay in her path. As the line of humans disappeared into the inner corridors of the station, their echoes still lingered. The metallic thunder of their boots seemed to hang in the air, like a storm cloud that refused to dissipate. In a quiet alcove of the council chambers, an Avaron elder lowered his crystalline staff against the floor. He had watched their arrival, with eyes heavy from centuries of memory. His kin glanced at him, curious. "You look as if you've seen ghosts," one of them said. "Not ghosts," the elder whispered. His voice trembled slightly, though his hands were steady. "Survivors. I have seen that look before when soldiers return from wars so terrible, the universe itself prays to forget them." His gaze drifted toward the human vessel visible through the wide viewport, a storm-colored colossus, resting in stillness. "The question is not why they brought only one ship," the elder continued, voice almost drowned by the buzz of the chamber. "The question is why they believed one ship would be enough." His words spread, hushed at first, then repeated by others in the chamber, until the rumor carried itself outward, like ripples across water. Why only one ship? In the station's bustling halls, the question grew. From soldiers to merchants, from envoys to engineers, everyone asked the same thing. The curiosity was tinged with unease now, because silence surrounded the humans like armor, and silence breeds fear. The cadet from earlier lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of his quarters, hearing in his memory the echo of their boots. No matter how he tried to push it aside, he couldn't escape the feeling that something terrible walked within those quiet shadows, that something more dangerous than fleets had just arrived. The council's great amphitheater glittered like a crown of stars. Tier upon tier of alien dignitaries filled the vast chamber, each draped in their empire's colors, each eager for spectacle. Holographic displays floated above the circular dais, showing the fleets waiting beyond the station armadas, of every power in the galaxy. It was time for the war games. The tradition was older than most civilizations present. Empires came to flaunt their fleets, to prove strength without spilling blood. It was theater, lethal theater. Fleets would fire upon inert targets, maneuver through simulated battles, crush asteroids into dust with precision strikes. The audience cheered the flashes of power, the thunder of annihilation, the carefully staged violence that reminded everyone of who stood atop the galactic order. The Vakari opened the games with fire and fury. 60 warships advanced in perfect formation, their hulls glowing with molten runes, plasma batteries lighting up the void. Asteroids shattered beneath their coordinated volleys, turning into rivers of liquid fire. The amphitheater roared approval. Vakari officers slamming fists against the railings. The Raxians followed 90 warships of brutal design, bristling with spikes and missile bays. They launched swarms of drones, like locusts, blackening the void, overwhelming targets with sheer numbers. The destruction was relentless, overwhelming, a tidal wave of steel and fire. Other empires took their turn. The Avaran demonstrated precision strikes, so delicate that asteroids split into symmetrical shards. The insectoid Ryle swarmed in clouds of living ships that struck like stingers. Each empire basked in applause, preening under the roar of approval. And then, silence. The final name glowed across the holographic boards. Earth. One ship. The crowd's murmur rose into laughter. Some dignitaries leaned back in their seats, smug. Others jeered openly. A Raxian overlord bared his teeth, hissing, "What performance can one ship give?" A Vakari general barked laughter. "Perhaps they'll fire a single cannon and call it victory." The chamber shook with derision. At last, the human captain stood. He was tall, his uniform simple, his hair streaked with gray at the temples. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes burned with the same quiet storm the cadet had seen in the docking bay. He waited until the noise died, not by speaking, but by letting silence drag every mocking voice into stillness. Only then did he speak. "If we must fight," the captain said, his voice low, yet carrying across the chamber like distant thunder, "then you will understand why we brought one." The words were not boastful, not proud. They were delivered like fact, cold and absolute, as though no other possibility existed. The silence after was heavier than the applause given to any empire. On the displays, the human dreadnought stirred. Alone, it drifted forward into the void, facing empty space where targets would soon appear. Its thunder-gray hull bore no ornament, no visible radiance. It seemed almost primitive compared to the gleaming fleets that had performed before it, and yet, the longer it hung there, the more the audience felt the weight of its presence. The alien cadet gripped the railing tightly, his chest tight. That hum he had felt before in the docking bay, the sound of restrained thunder, he swore he could hear it again through the display. The dreadnought didn't shine like a jewel. It loomed like a storm cloud. The mockery began to falter, replaced by uneasy murmurs. But the council chancellor, eager for spectacle, raised his arm and gave the order. "Let the human demonstration begin." Targets flickered into being across the void, hollow asteroids, armored hulks, and swarms of drones programmed to simulate enemy fleets. The dreadnought remained still, engines humming. From the observation tiers, thousands leaned forward, waiting for the joke, for the pitiful display that would expose Earth as obsolete. Instead, the human ship gave no movement, no fire, no signal, only silence. It was silence heavy enough to unnerve. The alien dignitaries glanced at one another. The crowd whispered, impatient, unsure. Had the humans come only to embarrass themselves? The captain did not smile. He did not flinch. His words echoed once more through the chamber. "One is enough." The crowd hissed, jeered, laughed again, but their voices carried the thin edge of unease now. The chamber emptied slowly after the human captain's words, yet the silence he left behind lingered like smoke after fire. Laughter returned in uneven bursts, but it carried a nervous edge, as though even the boldest of voices tried to smother. Something unsettled. In a quiet observation room above the amphitheater, Vakari Admiral Sarek leaned over a table of flickering records. His scales gleamed dark bronze beneath the pale glow of the screens. Younger officers circled him, their tails flicking impatiently, their voices sharp with arrogance. They bring one ship and dare to stand among us. They will be ashes before the war games end. They are already nothing, Admiral. Fleets win wars, not relics. Sarek's claws tapped the console, silencing them. He spoke low, as though unwilling for the walls themselves to overhear. Young ones, do you know why humanity is feared? The officers sneered, amused. One spat, a hiss. Feared. They are forgotten. Their colonies vanished, their fleets silent. Only fools fear ghosts. Sarek's eyes narrowed. He expanded the projection before them. Grainy footage, old as dust, filled the air. Black and white images of cities, reduced to skeletons of stone. Firestorms, devouring skylines. Oceans boiling beneath the mushroom bloom of nuclear fire. The younger Vakari shifted uncomfortably. Primitive. Weapons, one muttered. Brutal. Inefficient. They destroyed themselves more often than their enemies. Primitive, Sarek agreed softly, yet effective. He tapped again, and the projection shifted. Battles of iron and steel, crude ships colliding, skies filled with tracer fire. Then newer images, more terrible. Orbital bombardments, turning worlds into ash plains. Cities drowned beneath engineered storms. Armies erased in moments by fire that fell like rain. These are fragments, Sarek said. Records buried because no one wanted to remember them. I have studied them for decades. Humanity did not wage war. Humanity became war. They fought not until they won, but until nothing was left to resist. One of the officers laughed nervously, trying to break the spell of the images. And what of it? Those days are gone. They are shadows clinging to a past no one remembers. Sarek's head turned sharply, his eyes burning. Shadows, he growled, can still kill. The younger officers fell silent, tails curling tight. Outside the chamber walls, the humans moved through the station like quiet storms. They kept to themselves. No banners, no boasts. And yet, the weight of their silence carried through the corridors, unsettling even the most hardened soldiers who crossed their path. Every bootstep was a reminder of storms caged beneath skin and steel. Meanwhile, the other empires mocked them openly. In the taverns of the upper tiers, aliens drank and laughed at the human dreadnought's lonely birth. One ship, a Raxian warlord howled, slamming his clawed fist against a table. A single dreadnought against the fleets of empires. It is a joke. They will fire a single round, then surrender, another jeered. Perhaps it is mercy, they say, us the trouble of destroying them. The chamber roared with laughter. But Sarek sat alone, watching the stars beyond the viewport. His claws drummed against the armrest, restless. The younger officers returned to him later, emboldened by the mockery that filled the station. Admiral one said, "Why brood over shadows? The humans will be humiliated, and the galaxy will forget them. Their thunder has passed." Sarek's gaze never left the void. His voice was low, heavy. "You hear laughter," he said, "but I hear thunder, the kind that comes before storms." He turned his head, eyes narrowing toward the human vessel drifting in silence. "If that ship carries even a fraction of the fury I have seen in their histories," Sarek whispered, "then pray, young ones, pray that it never awakens." The officers scoffed, dismissing his words. But none of them could shake the images of fire and storm from their minds. The void outside the station had become a stage. Fleets drifted into position, their hulls gleaming with power, engines burning bright against the black canvas of space. Every empire had taken its turn, dazzling the council with fire and fury. reducing asteroids into ribbons of molten rock. Their performances painted the dark in colors of war-red plasma streaks, golden beams, emerald waves of ion fire. Now only one ship remained, the human dreadnought. It emerged slowly from its berth, its thunder-gray hull rolling into the starlight. Unlike the others, it did not shine. Its surface bore the scars of 100 battles, patched wounds, scorch marks left unpolished. It carried no escort, no swarm of drones. Only silence followed it. The amphitheater filled with mocking voices. "A relic," shouted a Raxian warlord, his jagged teeth bared in laughter. "Perhaps they've come to show us how ancient wrecks drift. They will embarrass themselves before all the stars." But beneath the jeers, unease whispered. The dreadnought did not posture, did not signal readiness. It simply moved forward, steady, deliberate, inevitable until it reached the center of the void. Then it stopped. Engines dimmed to a low, thrumming growl that vibrated through the station's VIEWPORTS. Inside the chamber, a hush fell. The Chancellor gave the command, "Initiate targets." Across the battlefield, shapes flickered into being, armored hulks, asteroid clusters, simulated fleets of drones, challenges meant to test precision, power, and endurance. The alien crowds leaned forward, expecting fire, expecting the human relic to crack open and sputter like a dying star. But the dreadnought did not move. Seconds stretched into silence. No weapons flared, no engines fired. It hung in the void like a storm cloud, swollen with unspoken promise. The alien cadet from before gripped the railing, heart pounding. He could hear it again, that low hum, deep and resonant, the same thunder he'd felt in the docking bay. It was louder now, pressing against his chest, as though the very air vibrated with it. The laughter began again, though thinner this time. Jagged with nerves, broken systems, a Vakari sneered. Perhaps they forgot how to fight. An Acheron delegate mocked, though his crystalline fingers tapped restlessly against the railing. Then the lights on the dreadnought changed. Along its hull, faint veins of storm blue energy began to glow, crawling like lightning beneath steel. The hum deepened, resonant, unnatural. The very void seemed to shiver. The mocking stopped. Every eye in the amphitheater fixed on the vessel as the glow grew brighter, spreading across its armored body like cracks of lightning before a storm breaks. The Chancellor's voice, steady but sharp, cut through the silence. "Proceed, humans." The human captain raised his hand aboard the command deck. He did not shout. He did not smile. His lips moved in a single word. Now, the dreadnought pulsed, not with light, not with fire, but with sound. A deafening resonance rippled through the void, rolling across the battlefield like thunder unleashed in a place where no storm should exist. Every viewport rattled, every hull groaned, even the amphitheater itself vibrated, as though caught inside a drumbeat, struck by some colossal hand. Targets shattered instantly. The armored hulks split down their cores. Asteroids cracked apart, in clean lines. Drones faltered mid-flight, their systems scrambled, collapsing like dead insects. The resonance faded as quickly as it came, leaving the void eerily still. Silence pressed down like a held breath. In the chamber, no one laughed. Not a single voice dared to rise. The cadet's hands shook against the railing. His mind screamed for logic, for explanation, but all he could think was thunder in the void. The human dreadnought remained still, glowing, waiting. For a heartbeat, silence held the galaxy. The thunder had rolled across the void, tearing targets apart as though they were paper. The echoes still shivered through the amphitheater's glass walls, through the bones of every spectator. Then the silence shattered. "Tricks," roared the Raxian warlord, slamming a clawed fist against the railing. His voice was echoed by others. "Sonic illusions. Cheap sabotage. No ship carries such power," hissed a Vakari general. "They've hidden devices in the targets. Deception, The Chancellor, his composure faltering, gestured sharply. "Deploy live challengers. Let us test this storm." Across the void, fleets stirred squadrons of warships, breaking formation, their hulls glinting as they locked weapons onto the solitary human dreadnought. It was supposed to be demonstration, not battle, but pride burned hotter than protocol. No empire would allow a relic to humiliate them before the galaxy. Engines flared, guns primed, and then the void erupted. Hundreds of beams cut across the darkness, golden lances, plasma fire, swarms of missiles streaking toward the lone ship. The amphitheater rumbled with the brilliance of annihilation. The storm-colored dreadnought stood at the center, swallowed by fire. The cadet, watching from the gallery, felt his heart seize. Even a giant could not withstand that torrent. The dreadnought would crumble. It had to, but when the firestorm cleared, it still stood. Its hull glowed faintly blue, shimmering with arcs of lightning that crawled across its surface. The barrage had not pierced it. The dreadnought had absorbed the fury of entire fleets and endured without flinching. The audience gasped as one. Then the dreadnought answered. The hum deepened, a resonance that pressed against lungs and bones, a sound too vast for ears alone. The stars seemed to flicker, dimming as if the void itself bent beneath the weight of the sound. Then it struck. Invisible shock waves blasted outward, tearing across the fleets. Ships convulsed as if caught in hurricanes where no atmosphere existed. Hulls screamed. Armor plates buckled inward, as though crushed by unseen hands. Entire formations shattered, vessels ripped apart, scattering debris across the void. Lightning arced between the wrecks. Blue-white forks of stormfire, leaping from ship to ship, igniting fuel lines, detonating magazines. In seconds, proud fleets were reduced to drifting carcasses, torn and sparking. Screams filled the channels. Desperate, terrified. We're losing control. Hull breach, decks collapsing. It's inside the ship sound, too loud. One Vakari destroyer split down its center, both halves spinning away like leaves in a gale. A Raxian carrier crumpled as its drones flickered and died, their husks falling lifeless into the void. An entire squadron of Avaran frigates disintegrated into crystalline shards, scattered like broken glass under lightning. The cadet clutched the railing, wide-eyed, unable to breathe. He felt it even here, through walls and distance. The pressure, the vibration, the storm. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a cannon. It was something older, something primal. It was thunder made flesh on the dreadnought's bridge. The human captain stood calm, hands clasped behind his back, as the storm obeyed. His officers worked silently. No cheers, no boasts, only precision. They had unleashed this before. They knew its weight. In the amphitheater, panic rippled through the gathered dignitaries. Some stood, shouting for explanations, for safety protocols, for the Chancellor to stop the madness. But the Chancellor's face was pale. His hands trembled on the railing. He could not speak. The thunder faded slowly. The glow across the dreadnought, dimming the void, settled. Where once hundreds of warships had loomed, now only debris drifted, burning wrecks spinning silently in the aftermath. The lone human ship floated untouched at the center, its engines humming like a heart too vast to comprehend. The battlefield was dead. Debris drifted where fleets had once stood, proud hulks cracked open, engines flickering their last sparks, fragments of metal tumbling silently across the void. No wreckage moved with purpose. No ship signaled for help. Only silence remained, heavy and absolute. The human dreadnought floated at the center, untouched. Its engines glowed faintly, its storm blue veins dimming as though the beast had exhaled after striking. It did not advance. It did not posture. It simply was a shadow adrift in stillness, as if daring anyone to challenge the storm again. In the amphitheater, no one laughed now. The seats that once thundered with cheers now echoed only with the sound of shallow breathing and muffled gasps. The gathered dignitaries leaned forward, pale, hands trembling against the rails. Their fleet's grand symbols of power were gone. In minutes. The alien cadet's eyes stung as he realized he'd been holding his breath. His chest loosened, but the relief was worse than fear. The human ship had not fought like the others. It had endured and then destroyed with a force that could not be reasoned with. His mentor, the Averon Elder, gripped his crystalline staff tightly, whispering just loud enough for the cadet to hear. "Do you understand now? That is why there is only one. One storm is enough to drown an empire." Below them, the council chamber erupted in chaos. Some demanded explanations, others shouted for sanctions. Still others called for humanity to be barred from ever fielding such a weapon again. Their voices overlapped in a cacophony of fear and anger. But the humans had not yet spoken at last. The chamber's central display shimmered. The human captain appeared, his face calm, his uniform plain, his eyes holding storms behind them. He looked not triumphant, not vengeful, but inevitable. When he spoke, his voice carried with the weight of thunder, low and resonant, each word striking like a drumbeat. "We do not bring fleets," he said. "We bring storms." Silence fell, the echoes of his words reverberating through the chamber. "One is enough." The words rippled outward, burning themselves into memory. The cadet felt them crawl under his skin. They were not a threat. They were not a boast. They were fact, immutable, across the tiers. Dignitaries who had once scoffed now bowed their heads, some in shame, others in resignation. The Vakari Admiral Sariktha, only one who had whispered warnings, remained upright, but even his jaw tightened, the old scars along his face seeming to pulse. The Chancellor swallowed hard, his voice unsteady. "Humans, what is it you seek from this display?" The captain's gaze sharpened. "We seek nothing," he said. "We have nothing to prove. But you asked why only one ship. Now you know." The silence deepened again, heavier than before. For a moment, even the stars seemed to hesitate outside the vast windows. In the docking bays, the human crew returned to their vessel in perfect step, boots echoing like thunder rolling through hollow halls. No celebration, no cheers. Their eyes betrayed nothing. The cadet could not look away. He felt the truth clawing at his mind, and the thought would not leave him. If one ship can do this, what happens if Earth wakes the rest? He realized then why. The humans carried silence like armor. It was not humility, it was restraint. The storm was always there, waiting. The galaxy did not sleep that night. From the outer colonies to the ancient core worlds, whispers raced faster than light. Hushed transmissions, frantic reports, and trembling voices told the same story. One human ship had stood against the might of many the storm had answered. The image of the dreadnought lingered on every screen, its scarred hull glowing faintly with veins of storm blue, a silhouette suspended in silence. 1,000 cultures debated, denied, or prayed, but none forgot the sound. The echo of thunder in the void haunted every mind that had heard it. In the council amphitheater, the aftermath clung like smoke. Delegates sat hunched in their seats, voices low, as though raising them might awaken the storm again. The cadet stared through the viewport, where the human vessel drifted, steady, watchful, like a storm cloud that had not yet rained its last. He turned to his mentor, his throat dry. "Is it always like this?" The Averan Elder's crystalline face reflected the starlight. His voice cracked like brittle glass. "No, usually worse." The cadet shivered. The words carried weight, the way truths do when polished by centuries of silence. On the chamber floor, the Chancellor stood pale, his robes rumpled, his voice struggling for strength. "Humanity, you have proven yourselves. But I must ask, why keep such power hidden? Why come with only one?" The human captain's hologram flickered back into view. His face was calm, unreadable, like stone before a storm breaks. Because you needed reminding, he said. His voice rolled through the chamber, not loud, but heavy each syllable, carrying the resonance of thunder remembered. The Chancellor's lips trembled, and if we had not asked, the captain's eyes darkened. Then you would have forgotten, and forgetting has a price. Gasps rippled through the amphitheater. The cadet clutched the railing as cold realization sank into him. Humanity did not come to conquer. They came to warn. On the bridge of the dreadnought, the human crew moved with the silence of seasoned soldiers. No victory songs, no cheers. They carried the weight of thunder, knowing it was no weapon to be celebrated. It was restraint that kept it leashed. The engines of the dreadnought rumbled to life. Slowly, the ship turned, its storm vanes dimming, fading back into the armor, until only the scars remained. The storm cloud drifted toward the black, leaving wreckage in its wake but no pursuit. The cadet pressed his forehead to the cold glass, whispering words he barely understood. Thunder. It doesn't ask. It doesn't beg. It just comes. He knew then that the galaxy's balance had shifted. Alliances, rivalries, fleets all would be measured against the silence of that one ship. Against the storm humanity carried alone. Already, whispers were turning into legends. The tale would be told in 100 tongues, reshaped into myth. But the message would remain. Do not call the storm. Do not test the thunder. The human dreadnought vanished into the dark, swallowed by the void. It left no message, no demand, no claim of victory. Only silence. And silence was louder than any fleet.